why it is so widely accepted as the primary theory of aging is because it's easily accessible. People can see it. You can see age spots, lipofuscin building up in your cells. You can see wrinkles. You can see, weak bones and bad hearts. And it does seem as though these things are due to ineffective repair mechanisms within our cells, right? And
Right.
I would say we probably can get some extension of lifespan by fixing some of this damage. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Because it does cause pathology. So you're not saying it's a completely worthless endeavor, but perhaps that we're not going to get too far with it.
Oh, I won't put any limits on how far you will get just by fixing damage. No, I'm not saying that at all. We have done a number of experiments in my lab, for example, where we artificially induce damage and look at how different kinds of fruit flies cope with that. So damage is an obvious mechanism. Your listeners should understand that the idea that basically aging is accumulation of damage or dysfunction or junk, whatever you want to call it, is the oldest theory of aging that we know of.
Okay.
Aristotle had this basic idea.
Oh yeah, with the 4 elements.
Getting into disharmony.
Sure.
The idea of a disruption or a breakdown, that's the normal theory of aging. The evolutionary theory is the main alternative. And there's the reason why Aubrey and I got, ironically, into a big argument about immortality, particularly after my Sense talk at Sense 3.
3, right. We had a big discussion as well.
Yeah.
Forum.
Is, the evolutionary theory and experiments can explain why aging stops. The idea of aging as a cumulative damage process runs into big trouble with the fact of biological immortality. And there's a big irony here for members, affiliates of the Immortality Institute, right? You should understand how fantastic this discovery within evolutionary biology is.
Sure.
Because what the discovery of biological immortality shows us is how much less demanding the project of biological immortality is than we ever thought before. If you'd asked me about the prospects for biological immortality in 1990 for humans, I would have said, forget it.
Sure.
Well, in fact, I did. I was interviewed many times in the 1980s. Now, to me, it's a project like building a fission reactor. It's hard, but the basic science is there. So my perspective now, and I've said this to journalists, and they ridiculed me for it sometimes. I tell them that what I'm really interested in now is not aging so much as immortality. That's what I think is really exciting scientifically. It's not the project of controlling aging, which I've been doing for decades.
Right.
I was one of the very first people to say, okay, now I'm going to change the rate of aging to produce long-lived organisms. I did that in the 1970s. What really excites me now is the prospect of controlling when aging shuts down, and when you get into the non-aging, infinite plateau, which is to me a new form of biological immortality, and I think that's a truly revolutionary event. And I actually published an article a couple of years ago with a bunch of colleagues called a revolution for gerontology, talking about the prospect for achieving biological immortality as a fundamentally scientifically serious thing.
Okay, yeah, okay. Excellent, yes, and I know what you're going through when you talk about immortality. Believe me, many of us have run into trouble when we talk about that. I want to get back to the methods of, say, rejuvenation here then, because once again, Aubrey in Sens has a much easier way to, it's much easier to grasp as far as how you're going to get better. For people who are 50, 60, 70 years old, and they have a lot of...
Can I say something simple to you, Justin?
Huh?
Can I say something simple to you?
Say something very simple.
It's much easier to imagine going from a crackling fire to chemical explosions. then it is easy to imagine going from E equals mc squared to atomic bombs, atomic power plants, or the sun. You know, the first thing is easier to imagine than the second thing.
Yep.
The second thing is many times more powerful. Many, many times.
Oh, I get your analogy. I do get that. Bring it to concrete levels here. How are we going to institute rejuvenation therapies from anything we learn from evolution, experimental evolution, and you know, figuring out what genes are involved in aging, what we can tweak? How are we going to get that into humans? There's a 70-year-old human that is, you know, has suffered a lot of different types of damage throughout their life, and the body is failing, their organs are failing. How are we going to translate what we discover through experimental evolution into a person so that they can be rejuvenated? What do you, I mean, perhaps some of this stuff doesn't exist, but what is on the horizon? How do you anticipate it's going to happen, that we'll be able to rejuvenate people?
Right, there's a one-word answer.
Okay.
The one-word answer is genomics.
Genomics.
It's exactly the kind of the genomic technology can solve.
Are we talking about RNA interference?
That's one genomic technology. There are lots of genomic technologies. Genomics is completely transforming biology.
So we're going to have to change the genes. We're going to have a method.
No.
No.
No. Genomics includes methods like RNAi, whereby you can change what genes do downstream without changing your DNA sequence.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
So.
Sorry. Yeah.
As we make genomic progress, you know, this is only a technological question now, Justin. There is no basic science. It's strictly an engineering problem. So the thing I love about Aubrey is his insistence on, let's take an engineering approach. Exactly. Well, I love that.
Sure.
Right.
Okay.
So that's why, you know, and I mean, I think Aubrey is one of the great wordsmiths of our time. You know, so that's why when I came up with sense, you know, I was ripping off some of Aubrey's great terminology, strategies for engineering negligible senescence, and I was just adding the E, the evolutionarily.
Evolutionarily.
Because it's still like, you know, you can imagine the project, you know, I'm going to build a really powerful bomb. And you can do it using chemical explosives and jamming in as many chemical explosives as you can into this metal shell, which you're going to put in this giant bomb, which you're going to drop off of a plane, you know, onto your target. Or you can say, well, maybe there's another kind of technology.
We can just
Aubrey and I are in complete agreement that what we need now are strategies for engineering negligible senescence. We totally agree on that. We only differ as to what the best engineering would be.
I see. Okay. Well, it seems pretty simple then. One of our astute viewers here tonight mentioned that nuclear DNA mutations do happen over time. So just purely relying on RNAi perhaps will not, after a while, it may fail as a engineering approach due to mutations. Maybe you're familiar with Hans Wieg and his genetic drift theory of aging. That would also come into play, I would think. And another person prior, this is all related here, believe me, I'm getting to the point here. Another person mentioned epigenetic changes throughout your life change what genes are, what is going to be expressed downstream, so that may interfere with some of our attempts to express the correct genes. Are these some things that you've thought about? Certain things that may affect this evolutionarily approach, the sense approach?
Absolutely, these are issues. In going from science to technology, there's a lot of work to be done. No one should underestimate the intelligence of good engineers.
Sure.
So, even though I gave you a one-word answer, which is genomics,
yep.
Genomics is technologically massive, and it's exploding, and it's very complex. I don't claim mastery of it.
Right.
I'm a scientist